Good evening, and it's wonderful to join you here. My name is Penelope Janu. I'm the author of, 8 books now and 2 novellas. And I'm very delighted to be the guest of Better Reading tonight. To talk about my newest release. It's actually on the screen behind me, I think. Sunshine Through the Rain, and here it is again too. I'll just start with a quick I guess you probably notice I'm a little bit bruised. It's all about authenticity, isn't it, being an author? And I did have quite a serious fall, just in the garden of all things, about 10 days ago. So I'm still very bruised and a bit swollen, but nothing compared to what I was like a little while ago. And I'm quite well, although I did do an event in the first week of the book release, and I was asked to talk about my book, and luckily I had my beautiful writing group, Inkwell, there supporting me. And do you think I could remember what it was about? I couldn't because of this concussion. But I think today I'm going to do better. But look, as many questions as you can ask, the more the better is wonderful, because I'm really good at being reactive. And as I said, I'd love to talk about my book and to answer any questions that you might have. Hello, Christine. First up, really, I guess just an introduction to the book itself. What inspired me to write this book? I actually have a character, and it doesn't happen with all of my books, but with Sunshine Through the Rain, we were lucky enough to be very close to another family and went on a number of farm holidays. And while all of my children and the children from the other family, yes, they loved animals, and we were in central western New South Wales on sheep properties. There was one child in particular, Dominique, and she's mentioned in the acknowledgements to the book, who was just absolutely animal crazy, but then it just never left her. She just had this extraordinary connection and love of animals. She studied animal science at university. During university, she worked in laboratories, and people would say, how can you possibly do that? And her response to it was that, well, she could show the animals kindness. These are in laboratories so far as developing vaccines and things for human beings. And so these animals, the reality is that they are sometimes experimented on. But Dom sort of had that reaction that she could help them, she could be kind to them, she could show them love, and that was something that was really, really important. And certainly my character, Primrose Cartwright, is very reflective of that sort of response, because she works with large animals like beef and like sheep, but she wants to show them as much kindness as she can. And so she's a great advocate for animal welfare, for anaesthetising when possible, for minimising the stress of animals. She also falls in love, of course, with a Scottish vet, Blake Sinclair, and he was a joy to write, particularly because Primrose needed someone really special. So it was really nice to think up a Blake Sinclair, who was, I think, the perfect guy for her. And he's a large animal anaesthetist vet, which allowed me to go back to the open plain zoo environment, which I'd written about up on Horseshoe Hill. Enjoyed writing about both of those characters and animal welfare and large animal anaesthetist vets. Did lots of research as usual, got lost down many rabbit holes, but I'm really, really delighted this book is out in the world now. So, thank you. A couple of people commenting on my fall, but all well now. And yeah, as I said, it's, all good. And look, I was lucky enough that, I'm here to promote the book, even though it's kind of just online at the moment. Sharon's asked what I like to read. Do you have any recommendations? Goodness, I've always read romance. I read across all different genres, I think, like most avid readers. But I've always enjoyed romance, or even if it's a book, even if it's a crime book or a literary fiction, I do look for that tinge of romance. Usually I love reading rural fiction, but I don't usually read it when I'm writing it. I love to read romantic comedies. And I also delve back into the classics. Jane Austen, I think most of my readers would know I'm a bit of a fan of Jane Austen. She's a perennial favourite. And I'm lucky enough to have wonderful friends in the writing community, and I get to read lots of their books before they even go out to readers. Historical fiction also. Authors like Tia Cooper and Gary Fraser. I love to read their Australian historical fiction, and also like a bit of historical romance, which I was reading Regency's way before. Well, I was reading Bridgerton way before Julia Quinn. Was very well known from the Bridgerton series. I really enjoy historical romance as well. Oh, and hello, Claire. It's one of my readers. I have to tell Claire. Claire likes one of my characters, Nate, who does pop out in a few different books. So Nate is in this book, Claire. I thought you might like that. Yeah, so there's a sort of mystery in this book, like in all of my books, really. I sort of usually have a mystery thread going through them, and that's exactly the same with this one. And in this particular book, the threat really is to Primrose's career as a vet, because she reports somebody she thinks is has done something wrong in terms of giving hormones to animals that he shouldn't be, and that is a real threat to her career, because she has various issues with sticking up for herself, and that's another theme in this book, I suppose. Prim Cartwright has a stutter. So again, another research thread. I don't have a stutter, but a couple of my children had issues where they saw speech pathologists, and oh my goodness, the things that speech pathologists could do, or their approach to speech issues, speech difficulties, really inspired me, and that's something which made it, particularly rewarding for me, I guess, to write a character with a stutter. And when a stutter itself is not, it's an element that can be seen as diversity, and I love that notion too. It's different, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. It's only if people have difficulty perhaps in communicating in certain ways, then that might be something that they might want to see somebody about. But certainly with Prim, that is something as an element of her, what she does have a stutter, and she stutters in certain circumstances, and that's something that was really nice to be able to show Blake Sinclair, his acceptance of that, and his acceptance of that as part of her. But it's probably unusual. A couple of people have said that's kind of unusual to have a heroine to have something like that, but it really rounded out the character for me, and it made a lot of sense with this character, that had been something that she dealt with through her life. So, Rhiannon, she's already read the book and she loved it. Thank you very much, Rhiannon. That's nice to hear. So if anybody else has any questions about my process or what the book's about, have any of you read any of my other books? I call this my weather or the third in my weather series. So all my books are absolutely standalone, but Sunshine Through the Rain is a story of a Cartwright sister, Primrose Cartwright, other Cartwright sisters. Phoebe appeared in Clouds on the Horizon, and here's my memory, Patience Cartwright appeared in Shelter from the Storm. So absolutely all standalone, but they are three sisters. Oh, how do I choose my characters' names, Sharon? Well, it's wonderful, isn't it? Because I chose certain of my children's names. I did let my husband put his 2 cents worth in as well. But the wonderful thing about writing is that you get to choose other names that you've always enjoyed. I always love the name Patience. I've always loved the name Phoebe. Prim, I think I got the idea of that name. I read the Hunger Games series, and the younger sister in the Hunger Games was called Prim. And actually the way this story developed, and that's really interesting, because I started with the name Prim and Primrose because I liked it, but then that actually became a really an important element in telling Prim's story, because she, her mother had a stroke when she was very young, and Prim was with her at the time. Her mother named her Prim because she loved primroses, because she'd studied at Oxford in England. And so this notion of Primrose and Prim's relationship with her mother, and her mother's love for her, and her love of her mother, became really important in telling that story. So the flower itself became really important. So you never quite know how things are going to turn out when you name your characters. But but certainly naming this character Primrose it was an important thread actually in the story and the development of her relationship with Prim's mother. Rhiannon, that's good. Read Up on Horseshoe Hill. I do like, I do put a lot of animals in my books, and that's another thing that is really enjoyable, is actually naming characters in my stories. In Sunshine Through the Rain, there's a donkey called Eeyore, and the book Black Beauty was Donkey Eeyore, Winnie the Pooh. Sorry, there's also a pony called Merrylegs, who was really important in Black Beauty. Has anyone read Black Beauty? Anybody? It's kind of a very sad story. And again, I just came up with the name Merrylegs because this is a little grey Shetland pony, similar to the one in Black Beauty, but then that actually became a really important element in the story as well, because probably even more so in this book than in many of my others, Blake Sinclair has a really interesting a backstory. His father was Scottish. He adored his grandfather, who lived very remotely in the Highlands of Scotland, and it was through his grandfather that Blake really developed a love of animals and the treatment of animals, but he'd had a very poor relationship with his parents. He wasn't read to as a child. Prim was read to as a child, and this sort of element, I guess, of the Black Beauty element became really important. Blake was read to by his nannies, which is quite different, obviously, than being read to by your parents. So again, yes, there are horses in the book, but it always have some relevance, and the naming's pony. Merrylegs actually became really important to Prim and Blake's story as well, and their different upbringings. Okay, research. Thank you, Rihanna. Yeah, I do a lot of research. And sometimes I think, oh my goodness, can't I just make it a little bit more simple? But no, that's what I really enjoy doing. Some people, they say, write what you know. And of course, there's an element of writing what you know. With the crime elements of my novels, because I was a lawyer, I have a legal background, I find that kind of easy to an extent to write. The United Nations aspects of my stories that I write, again, I know something of them, particularly ones with the environmental focus. This one doesn't as much, it's more about the veterinary profession. But yeah, I do enjoy research, and when I've actually written the book and I've done all the edits and I've done all the hard work, I'm really glad that I've done it, because I write what I know to an extent, but I also write what I want to find out. And that really keeps me interested as a writer, because I really enjoy finding things out, like most authors do. And Laura, she enjoyed Shelter from the Storm. That's nice, Laura, and it has inspired her to start writing seriously and written more since meeting me in Forbes. Yes, I was lucky enough. I went on a tour recently to Forbes and Orange with the lovely Pamela Cook. We both contributed to a country vet Christmas, an anthology of Christmas stories with Alyssa Callan and Stella Quinn and Lily Malone. And so we did a little tour of New South Wales, towing Pam's wonderful vintage caravan behind us. We had a great time, and we met lots of lovely readers like Laura. It was fantastic. We can't wait to do the next one. Actually, we're planning our next trip for March, so watch out for that. So, Christine, Black Beauty was one of your favourite stories. Yes. Yeah, that made a big impression on me, actually, when I was a child. I read quite early, and I was really young when I read it. I might have only been 6 or 7, and I must admit that, and I won't put spoilers in because I think people should read Black Beauty. But yeah, something that happens at the end of the book that was so sad. I think I was sad for days and days and days at the end of that book as a result of reading, but it's a fantastic story. And Emma, you missed my characters after finishing my books. Thank you, disappearing into my books. That's really lovely. And I must say, as a writer, that's one of the wonderful things, that writers disappear into our books, and that's not because we think we're great or anything like that, but we kind of know it's working. I think where we really care about our characters and we sort of get up early in the morning or stay up late at night, wanting or having to finish their story. And often that's something I say to writers or people who might have just started in their writing career, and they're sort of finding it hard after the first 10,000 words perhaps, that it's hard to keep going. And it's just a matter of keeping going. And then you end up caring about those characters so much that you have to finish their stories, that you really want this certain ending for them, and you have to get there in a way that makes sense for the characters, and that, that inspires you as well. So it's always a good sign when you really have to keep writing, even though you might not want to. Michelle's asked, do I have a favourite cover? That's a bit tricky, a bit like favourite child or anything like that, because you do love them all. I do love the cover, and you might be able to see it behind me, Up on Horseshoe Hill, and that cover has a bit of a story perhaps. The writers have a say in a cover. I'm published by HQ HarperCollins, and they're fantastic. They do wonderful covers, and I really like them. But I think the first cover, the mock-up cover for Up on Horseshoe Hill, and for those of you who read it will know that Jet, or Jemima, is a farrier, and she works with her hands. She's strong and beautiful. And the first cover, the model was beautiful for that first cover that was given to me as a draft. But she had a lot of makeup on. I think she had nail polish on, and all of that is great when you're going out. But I think Jet, even when she did go out, she might put nicer clothes on, but that model just wasn't the right one for her. And so then we had to look at all these different models, because I said, well, probably not all the makeup if she's out working all day, working with her hands, working with horses all day. And so then we ended up with another character who's the one who appears on the Up on Horseshoe Hill. And I don't know, for that reason, I just thought, yes, she's perfect. And so, yeah, particularly, I love that cover. Cover for Clouds on the Horizon, you might see that behind me too. That actually is Hayley Watkins. I don't know if anyone have been watching The Amazing Race, the celebrity one, Emma Watkins. But Hayley's a gorgeous girl, and she and Emma grew up with my girls, so I'm very friendly with her mother. And I messaged her mum once and said, have you got any photos of Hayley in a hat? And she sent me that one. And so that actually appeared on the cover. So I actually know that particular cover girl. And Hayley, again, is a girl that is very comfortable, like Phoebe Cartwright would be in that particular story. Riding a horse, working on the land, and doing all those things. So that's favourite cover. I really like Sunshine Through the Rain cover, and that wasn't an easy cover to get right either, because there had to be sort of sunshine, and it's kind of a moody cover, and I think that sort of suits in some ways. It's the book as well, so I do like that cover. Also, Shelter from the Storm cover. I think everybody at HQ HarperCollins, we all really admired Patience's hair. I think that's just a nice cover. And most of my covers, they've been face forward, and the last couple have been sort of looking from behind, but that's okay. I like that too, because I think it means you can imagine what the character looks like. I think we all do that, don't we, anyway, in the pages of the book. But I do like to have a horse on the front of my book, so I'm very happy when I got the Sunshine Through the Rain cover and there was a horse there too. Oh, Sharon, do I know how my books are going to end when I first start writing them? I know that because I've sort of created these characters. So, for example, in Sunshine Through the Rain, so we have Prim Cartwright, and we have Blake Sinclair. And of course, when I start writing those characters, and I know that, I'd like them to be together at the end, but sometimes that's easier than others, because you sort of discover your character in many ways as you're actually writing the book. And to an extent, I mentioned earlier, but Prim Cartwright's been through a lot in her life, and she has had quite a lot of personal trauma that she's had to work her way through. And I think when I probably started writing Blake Sinclair, he might have been a different character than he ended up being. And the reason for that was that he had to be a certain character, because he had to be the right person for Prim, and he had to have the right empathy and consideration and love for her, and to love her how she is as well. Now, interesting with Blake Sinclair, I said he had more backstory than some of my other characters, and funnily enough, it was in the second chapter of that book, whereas he ends up sitting on the ground next to Prim. I won't give any spoilers, but they have a discussion about his childhood, because he knows she's upset. So they talk about his childhood growing up in the Highlands of Scotland, and how he was very close to his grandfather, and Prim takes that straight away as thinking that, well, that's why he was going to be a vet, in fact he was going to be a doctor, but he ends up being a vet. But that discussion between the two of them, I really discovered that character of Blake Sinclair, and I worked out that he had a lot of backstory himself, and he had a lot of reasons for having behaved the way that he'd behaved. He'd had short-term relationships, he hadn't been in love before, and I thought, well, okay, he actually needs somebody like Prim as well. So it was really satisfying, I think, creating those characters and making sure that they were right for each other. So I'm doing glasses on and glasses off. Okay, any more questions? Anything else anyone would like to know? First of all, it'd be good to see, and actually Michelle is here. Michelle very kindly sent me a picture of a selfie. Shelfie, rather, book of the shelf, a book on the shelf. And I haven't actually been out in the shops, not because of this necessarily, but it's the lights and all sorts of other bits and bobs. So I'll be getting out and about more, but I haven't actually seen Sunshine Through the Rain in the shops. So I hope you'll all forgive me if I'm the one that actually takes a shelfie, and I'll be the one putting it up when I actually see it on the shelves. Rhiannon's asked what's next for me. Well, I've actually just submitted my book that will be published at the end of next year. So at the moment, I've sort of done one book a year and a couple of novellas as well. The next book has a working title, The Lilyfield Saddler, and it is about a woman who's a saddler. And she lives in country New South Wales. So I've submitted that to my publisher. My publisher's got back to me and said that she loves it. So it will be my book for next year, which is really, really exciting. And and this book, it's consistent with my others in a way, but it has a few different themes which are a bit different. So I'm really looking forward to working on it. So I'll have a lot more work on it before you get to see it next December. Really looking forward to getting back into that. In the meantime, I'll start on yet another book because I don't know, I miss my characters. I think a lot of my readers miss my characters, which is really satisfying to me. But I kind of miss them too. And I think, they're together, they're happy. I kind of have to move on. And the way I move on and find excitement in my writing again is to write another book and to create more characters, which is kind of how it goes, which is how I suppose I keep on writing. I've also writing another novella. We're having another Christmas anthology next year with Stella Quinn and Pamela Cook and Lily Malone, and I'm very excited about that. I don't know if anyone's read our Christmas stories yet in the A Country Vet Christmas, but we've really enjoyed writing those stories, and it's wonderful that we're actually going to have the opportunity to write those stories again. Oh, Laura's asked how many stories can I work on at the same time? Not many at all, really, Laura. Only really one at a time. I know some writers manage to juggle, but if I'll start writing my novella. I'll finish that one. I'll probably start writing my story for 2025. When the edits come in for my 2024 story, I'll put aside that other story and I'll work intensely sort of for 8 weeks on my 2024 story, because that's the way I do it. Some do it in a different way, but I really need to sort of get that deep dive. I'm only focusing on those particular characters, and then I put that aside and then I start on the next story. So Elliot, I loved On the Same Page. Thank you. That's my true kind of rom-com, On the Same Page. I love writing that book. I have a lot of pleasure out of writing that book. That is a sort of a true romantic comedy. Some other books have comedy elements perhaps, but On the Same Page is a real romantic comedy about a woman called Miles Franklin, a contemporary Miles Franklin, who's the daughter of very snobbish literary parents. So, one day when I have more time. At the moment, my rural fiction readers are wanting more rural fiction, but maybe when I have time, I will write another romantic comedy, and I'd really like to do that. When I get around to it. But thank you. And thank you, Claire. Excited too. Townsend Janu, you might notice Townsend's got my surname. It's my beautiful daughter. What's most difficult about writing, and what do you find most enjoyable? Most difficult about writing. Sometimes where you really don't want to go on to the next scene because you're not quite sure what's going to happen. And I think Victoria Perman, some of you will be familiar with her, she always says she doesn't really think there's writer's block. It's probably more that you're going in the wrong direction or you're not sure what you want to do next in the book. And the way I get around that is basically force myself to sit down. I think, okay, I'm going to sit down in my chair for a few hours and I'm going to write. And even if I spent 5 or 6 hours writing and that scene is not going the right way, I will invariably find out that, okay, that's going the wrong way, but I know which way to go from now on. So that's a hard part of writing, but then at the end of that day or at the end of writing a certain scene that might not be right, then I do tend to go the right way. And usually that means that, I continue on that path for some time. So that is a real joy. the most enjoyable part of writing is really discovering the characters, and sometimes just things flow so well. I always love writing my last few chapters. First chapter I really enjoy because I'm finding out who the characters are. Last few chapters I really enjoy because I know my characters so well, and I really know where I want them to go and where they want them to be in the story. So I do enjoy writing those last few chapters. Now I say that's because I know where I want them to go, but maybe that's because I'm happy because I've been writing these characters for a year and I'm glad to get them done. I do enjoy edits. It's hard work often, but at the end of writing edits, certainly makes a story the best that it can be, and that's exciting too. Oh, Emma, which one of my books would I like to see turned into a movie? I think on the same page, my romantic comedy would actually be a very good movie. So if anybody knows any movie directors, feel free to give them my details or give them a book. I think that would make a really good rom-com movie. So Sandra Bullock type of a movie. As far as my rural fiction, I don't know, quite a few. I'll probably In at the Deep End, I think would lend itself really well because it has other elements of Antarctica and sort of the coast in it as well. So I think that would be a fun movie. But a lot of them, I think, with the large animal vets, and it'd be really interesting to see them on the screen. I think I'd have to just let the movie people do what they want with it. And it's funny you asked that question, actually, because the Lilyfield Saddler, which the name might change, it'll be the Something Saddler, in the Lilyfield Saddler, there is a movie set. There is a movie being made with horses, and I think that would, I can see that being made actually into a movie as well. So I have to wait for next time. So, thank you, Helen. Lovely to see you there. And on the same page. You never know what can happen, and that's the wonderful thing about writing. I mean, it's great to send my books out into the world. Readers find them, which is the most important thing, but other things can happen too. In at the Deep End, for example, is being published in the United Kingdom in print next year, and that was my first published book. It's published in 2017, so it's really exciting to know that particular book is going to be published in the UK, and out of that, anything can happen. At the very least, then other people can discover my books as well. Thank you, Claire. Love In at the Deep End. Yeah, a lot of people, they really like In at the Deep End, which is wonderful. I mean, others, have favourites among my rural fiction books. I suppose my favourite is often the one that I've just written because those characters are so fresh to me, and it just is genuinely exciting. Like with Sunshine Through the Rain, that the book is finally, after being me working on it for often sort of 18 months all up, really, at least is actually in the hands of readers, and I really get reader responses to my stories, which is really exciting too. So. And thank you, Carolyn. And now it is nearly time to finish up, actually. So if anyone has any other quick questions, otherwise I will finish up very soon and let everybody have dinner, or I haven't had dinner yet, so I'll go and have dinner. And I hope I have made some sense. Thank you, Rhiannon, for happy Christmas wishes. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to spending Christmas with my beautiful family and my animals and everything else. And I hope all my readers have a wonderful, safe and very, very happy Christmas as well. And I will look forward to seeing more of you all. I'm going to Brisbane actually next year in March. So I'm having quite a long kind of tour then. I'll be in Adelaide or in South Australia in August. In New South Wales itself, that's again February, March. We're planning a few events. And Pamela and Cook and I would love to do some regional events in Victoria and elsewhere as well. Of course, we'd love to come to WA as well and see Claire. Hopefully we'll get there one day as well. Thank you so much. Oh, Emma, Victoria. Yes, I love Victoria, so I would love to come to Victoria and regional areas there. So. Okay, but I think we're running out of time, so we're going to get cut off very soon. I'll certainly, I hope I haven't missed any of your comments or anything, but I'll go through them all because I think this is available afterwards as well. I don't need to listen to myself, but certainly I'd love to go through and make sure that I've looked at all your comments, and any questions I haven't answered, then I'll do that later on this evening. But thank you so much for coming along tonight, all of you. And yeah, I hope to see you all, if not in person, then certainly in line very soon. And thanks very much, Better Reading, for having me on tonight.